You're welcome back to The Pulse. Now, the Africa Center for Energy Policy is warning that we must brace up for some major load shedding in the country following news that the repair works on the FPSO Kwame Nkrumah will be further extended. The Deputy Minister for Power, John Jinapor, last week indicated that it would pose a challenge to the energy sector if oil production was delayed beyond this month, April. But Petroleum Minister Emmanuel Amakofi-Boa, speaking to Joy News on the sidelines of the annual Ghana Oil, Gas and Power Summit, says it's uncertain if the Saturday deadline will be met. But how serious is this challenge, and are we prepared to deal with the repercussions that come with it? Joining us now in the studio for some analysis on this matter is the head of the policy unit, the Africa Center for Energy Policy, Dr. Ishmael Aka. Thank you, sir, for joining us here on The Pulse. We've already heard from the Petroleum Minister indicating that based on his projections and the works that he has seen being done on the FPSO Kwame Nkrumah, it may take a bit more time than what was already announced of April 23 for the repair works to be done. For ASAP, what's your understanding of this problem?
Well, it is a very difficult situation because we have a very fragile power situation now. We depend so much on thermal plants, which uses natural gas. Fortunately for us, most of our thermal plants are dual fuel, so they can use either light crude oil or natural gas. It is only the American plant that solely depends on natural gas. So there are two implications here. One is that America will be off for some time. That is losing about 230 megawatts. Then the other ones like Tigo and Tapco, we have to get light crude oil, which is relatively expensive than natural gas. So cost of production, producing power will be increasing over some time. As of today, peak demand is around 2,011 megawatts. Peak supply is around 1,980 megawatts. So even now,
there's a deficit.
There's a deficit. So if we don't do things well, as we projected, I think in February, most of these coal stores and other small companies that were shut down during the doom, so they are now, some of them are now opening. So if we don't take care and they start coming to have dire consequences.
Okay, we'll talk a bit more about for power and what the consequences are. But just to situate this conversation in a better context, yesterday, Johnny spoke to the Petroleum Minister, Emmanuel Amakofi-Boa, who was explaining his understanding of the problem with the FPSO and why we are looking at a possible extension.
We have to do this in a way that ensures the integrity of the whole FPSO and oil production. You understand? Because that is important for us. And so we are working with them, making sure that this happens as quickly as possible, taking safety and the complicated processes into account.
So from what you said, you think, let's say the remaining, let's say the 2 weeks, the extra 2 weeks added on, is it feasible?
I think I've stated what my wish is. My wish is that all of that will be done for us to have gas and produce oil.
And aside your wish.
But guess what? I understand. I've been on the FPSO, and I know how complicated this whole process is, and the safety issues around it. In the final analysis, our oil, our resource is there. It's not going anywhere. We want this to be done for as quickly as possible, but it has to be done in a way that doesn't create disaster or problems. And so we are working with them to make sure it happens.
So Ghanaians should not...
We are working with them to make sure it happens.
That's the Petroleum Minister, Emmanuel Amakofi-Boa. In the studio with me is Ishmael Aka. He's the head of policy at the Africa Center for Energy Policy. Ishmael, if we're looking at, you've already explained what it will mean in terms of the deficit we'll have for power. Does that mean that we are looking at a possible return of a major load shedding?
That is possible, but I think something can be done about it. When you look at the thermal enclave, we have plants like the TT1, which gives us about 90 megawatts. We have Asogli, which gives us about 180, Asogli phase 1, 180 megawatt. Now it is giving us 90. That is half of the capacity because gas volume from Nigeria too is becoming lower. Now, one of the reasons that have been attributed for this is that we owe Nigeria. So if it is true, then I believe that we should pay Nigeria as quickly as possible, so that at least that we can use that to supplement what we have.
In fact, for the last checks I did with the debts that's owed, WAPCO and NGAS,
yeah.
we owed 170 million. The initial 10 million was paid. We know that between January and now, there have been a number of payments that have been done. As to whether that accounts for even half of the debts we owe, we do not know.
We do not know. That is one. The second is that there are plants that depend on light crude oil, even in Tema. One is Senate. And as I said, the TT1 also can use light crude oil. Unfortunately, we don't have much oil in storage. So the little there is being used by Senate, which gives us about 100 megawatts. So if we can even get enough crude oil, at least some of the plants can also come on board to more like cushion us. So either we pay Nigeria to get more gas, or we get more light crude oil so that we can solve this. Unfortunately, we are doing something that is very bad, and that is we are overdrafting the Akosombo Dam. Now, the minimum level the dam can operate is 240 feet. As of today, the water level is 237 feet, which means that we should have operating around 3 turbines. Now, at peak demand, that is 6 p.m. today, we're going to own all 6. In fact, every day, peak demand, we own all 6, which means that we are operating the dam over the capacity it can take. And we may not see the consequences today. I mean, in future, it may not be good for us.
You say that there are consequences for that. What are the consequences?
I mean, the dam, the engineers gave us capacity. Maybe at this peak demand, lowest level is 240. At this level, because we are using water on this 3 turbine, because that is how much, at that level, how many turbines we can operate. If you go beyond that, we are more like spoiling the integrity of the dam. It can spoil, can break up, you can weaken it. But some of these effects are not immediately seen, so it can take some time. Now, if they say that the lowest level you can operate the dam is 240, and you have a water level of 237, and at 240, you are advised that you own 3 turbines. However, you now have 237 and you are owning 6 turbines. It means that you are going beyond, I mean, that is overdoing it. And I mean, we know that too much of everything is bad. In the long term, it may not be good for us. So the immediate solution will be to get enough light crude oil for both Abuazi and Tema, or pay Nigeria if we owe them, so that they can give us enough gas to supplement what we have. Cash
flow, we know, has been an issue for the past 2-3 years now. We know that even before this routine maintenance was supposed to be done, while our sources within the power sector had indicated that some crude oil had been put in our stores at Abuazi and in Tema. If it runs out, and considering the price of crude picking up now on the international world market, will we be looking at paying a bit more for the power we consume? I mean,
that is, when you look at the tariff system, I mean, we look at the economic factors. So exchange rate, cost of oil, international oil price, the movement in all these factors can influence. So if prices are going up, I mean, we should be expecting a little increase in some of these things. But looking at cash flow, I think that it was one of the reasons the government introduced the energy debt recovery levy. We all knew, in fact, we discussed it, that the government owes ECG. ECG owes VRA, VRA owes NGAS and WAPCO and Co. If we've introduced energy debt recovery levy in December, at least we've paid for about 4 months. Why don't we start paying? How much have we gotten? How much have we paid to ECG? How much is ECG paying? Because look at the toll debt recovery, 13 years. And when you look at Act 642, it says every year the finance minister will have to go to parliament to tell them how much we've received from toll debt recovery. They've not done that for 13 years. I don't think we should wait and start overdrafting Akosombo. Meanwhile, we are paying energy debt recovery levy, which can solve some of these problems. So I think we need more communication, we need more accountability, transparency, and some of these things.
Are we back to crisis mode?
We are not, but we are in a very fragile situation where demand is almost equal to supply. Now, when you have that situation, a little increase in demand or even a shutdown of a plant will cause shortage, which will lead to some form of load shed. In fact, over the past 3 weeks, those staying around Dome, Hacho, Taifa, Achimota, been experiencing some form of doom. So, I mean, at times the light goes around 10 a.m., it comes at 5 p.m., or goes at 6 p.m., it comes after 10:30 p.m. And though we don't have a timetable, so we don't know how to call it, but I think we are experiencing something like that.
So if the Deputy Power Minister is listening, or for those in government who are looking at the situation and are trying to ensure that we don't see ourselves in this fix, what do we do? Pointed points.
I think number one is that they should come out, communication. I mean, what is the real challenge we are having now? Because initially we were told that Dumsor was over. Later we were told that Dumsor is not over. So how much are we generating? How much is there? Let us know, because we have this deficit. These are the plans we have in place. That's number one. Number two is that we get enough light crude oil so that we store them to power Senate, to power TTI, to power TAPCO and TICO, and other. Because as I said, apart from Ameri, all the other plants can use light crude oil. And the final one is that let us account for the energy debt recovery levy. And if we have, let us pay VRA and co so that they can also settle the Nigeria debt for us to get more gas from them.
All right. Thank you, Ishmael Aka, for your time this afternoon. Ishmael Aka is the head of policy at the Africa Center for Energy Policy. They've been monitoring developments in the energy sector. In view of the announcement we heard from the Petroleum Minister on the repair works on the FPSO to be extended by some more time because of the challenge with the vessel that needs some fixing. Let's see if this announcement will have any repercussion. Well, according to ASAP, we may be looking at another load shedding in the offing if government does not put in place the right measures to ensure that nothing of a sort happens in the coming days. Let's see how that goes. But we are still staying with energy and electricity today because the Electricity Company of Ghana says it's fixing the challenge with faulty meters of prepaid customers who have been overbilled and suffered arbitrary deductions. This is coming a day after the Public Utility Regulatory Commission, PURC, announced that they are penalizing the power distribution company for the effects of these faulty meters on prepaid power consumers. I've been speaking to the head of public relations at the ECG, William Boateng, on the challenge, and I first asked him why they knew of the problem but did not inform customers.
There are some issues with this prepaid, and I think we need to clarify some of them. Some of them is not about the meter. Some of them is about the charges. You know, the tariff itself, the way it works. You know, it's progressive. The more you consume, the more we pay. That's how it is. So when you move from one bracket to another bracket, it's like your meter speeds up because you are paying higher tariff at another bracket. This type of progressive tariff system, it's sometimes creates problems because the customer will look at it. For the past 1 week, I just spent about 20 Ghana. Why is that the following week I'm spending around 60 Ghana? Okay, and because you have moved to another tariff regime. So that is one aspect of the issue. One aspect.
I think the one that's causing a lot of problems today is with they buying the credits, 40 cedis, they go home, and even before they can start using what they've bought, they've realized that they've been deducted by 10, 15, 20 cedis. What is that problem? What's happening with our meters?
Well, we are talking about the null meters, where we made mention of the fact that instead of the system tripping after you've exhausted your credit or your money, your deposit, it does not. And so whilst you are off, it's like you are consuming and it's not tripping. And so when you can mean that you are owing the company having used some power instead of tripping, that particular system it's not working. And so when you come here as you are owing us, and that's where we have a challenge with our customers who think that, of course, it's a prepaid, and after using the money they've deposited, the system should trip. They don't want any explanation.
Okay, but how long have you known that this problem existed with your meters?
No, the new meter is not across board. It's a session from Legon around Osu, you know, it is not widespread. But that is what has generated the heat now, and we are working on it as we speak. We've increased the technicians on the field to go and then try and work on these things to make sure that the breakers are working, so that after you've exhausted your deposit, the system don't start put you on a postpaid. You know, the meter has that dual function where after the prepaid, it can switch to the postpaid system where you consume and later you owe the company. And I think that is what the issue is all about.
Okay, but if you knew that this meter could trip and go to postpaid and that we'll be in a position to owe you, this is not our fault as customers. This is the fault of the ECG. How come we are supposed to pay for your faults?
Well, I don't think that there's any fault anywhere or there's any cheating anywhere. It is power that you consumed. Only that I admit that the contract is about prepaid. And so you have deposited money. If it's exhausted, the system should trip for you to come and vent. I agree with you on that score.
So
unfortunately, the meter has been designed such that after that, we spoke to the experts and they thought that if they add that additional facility, it's more of a customer care, and that you don't put the customer in a very bad state, especially when in the night the credit is exhausted. So the customer can at least use, and then in the morning they will come and vent. But having created that problem, now that we realize that it's an issue, a serious issue, we've spoke to our technicians and the expert, the metering session, and they are working on that. And we are going to make sure that those breakers are fixed.
But if you put in such a measure, how come when I was signing a contract with you as a prepaid customer, you did not inform me about this option that when my light goes out, you can give me the ability to access credit and pay later? How do I monitor? How do I even believe that what you're telling me to pay is actually what I've consumed?
That is what we are working on. Sometimes these things take you by surprise, especially the fact that we thought that when they are installing these meters, that communication will take place at that level, because it's not widespread. This type of meter is not everywhere. It is about 5% of the entire metering. You know, already is a prepaid metering, and prepaid is around 30% of our metering. The postpaid is around 70%. So 30-35%, these are around 5% of the metering. We thought that at the installation level, at the technical, where they are installing the meter, that communication should have taken place, that type of information should have taken place.
So if that was not done, why should I pay for your faults?
What we are talking about is not fault. It's about something that really you consume. So it's about just informing you and trying to let you understand. But of course, so long as this has been an issue, we see how we go about it, and then if there's a need for us to let go or look at how we can arrive at a certain gentleman's agreement. If it is something that will spread what you have consumed around that time, if it is 5 cedis or it is 10 cedis, that we want to spread that, okay, because you did not know that you've been consuming while the system did not trip. You vent, and this amount due will spread for you, so that will make it more friendly to customers who will look at that.
Okay, the PURC, we've heard them announce that they are penalizing the ECG for this, for creating a system where people are unduly paying what they describe as arbitrary deductions for power they've consumed without any clear evidence of they consuming what you're saying they have. How do you respond to this? They said you are actually being penalized.
Well, we had the written to us. We'll go and meet them, and then we will go through the issues with them, because we'll give them the facts on the ground. We'll let them know what we are doing, and from there we can take it on.
We also heard from the Ghana Standards Authority indicating that indeed the issue of calibration of these meters was not properly done. How come?
I'm surprised about that, because we go through that rigorous exercise with them. There's international standards. We give them the designs, the manufacturing designs. They bring the meters in. We go and we present to them, and it's certified. So I'm surprised. In fact, when I heard that what we intend doing is to organize a press visit to our metering session at the project office, then you will have a first-hand evidence of how the meters go through that exercise, rigorous exercise of testing before we release them. But I think that the standards boards endorse, and you can go check with them. We submit all the designs and the specification to them before we bring them in.
But if indeed the calibration was properly done, how come people are suffering these challenges of their meters not tripping?
No, but there's no problem with it at all. The meters, it doesn't mean that somebody is cheating you. When the meter is not tripping, it doesn't mean that we are cheating you. I think we should get it right. When we say a meter is not tripping, what it means is that you are consuming the power. Now you have reached a stage where you have exhausted your deposit. The system should go off.
It doesn't go.
It doesn't go off. It means that you are using the power.
But again, I don't have the means to monitor what you're saying I've consumed. The contract I signed with you was a prepaid contract.
Yes, I agree with you, but you can still monitor, because when it doesn't trip, the system is still running. We have what we call the disk. So there are figures for us to do the checks with you, and it is clear. If you go and look at any of the meters, we have the dual, we have the manual one, and then the digital one. The manual one, you see the disk and the running, the numbers clearly written there, how much you've consumed. So it's not as if anybody is cheating. But I agree that is not the initial understanding. So yes, we have to do better by informing our customers and also by making sure that we reverse that particular system and make sure that it trips. I think that's...
So for your customers who suffered this and they thinking that indeed they have been shortchanged, how are you going to address that problem? What does each customer who's watching do for this process?
Well, I think that we have spoken to the district where we have those meters within that district. The district manager is to ensure that if it's an issue of the postpaid, where it's a prepaid and there's an arrears, the customer should not be blocked. What it means that the customer should not be blocked from vending. The customer should still vend. Then we let the customer be aware that there's an arrears. We'll go through the process for him to certify that that is real cost that he owes the company before we agree on the terms of payment. I think that's the best way to go.
How soon will this challenge be fixed?
Oh, well, I think that we've taken the initiative already. When we heard the complaints, we investigated and then they drew attention to it and we took off from there. So yes, something has started already. In fact, we've deployed more hands because of the complaints and to ensure that we meet PURC a target that they've given us. And we want to make sure that when we meet them, we are able to prove to them that not that we are not taking these issues seriously and that we are working.
When is that meeting happening?
Well, I'm sure by this week we should communicate. They have a way of communicating. In fact, there's an outfit, the outfit that's in charge, the Raga outfit, and I'm sure that they are going to meet them and then they'll trash out these differences and let's see the way forward.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your time. The Public Relations Manager for the Electricity Company of Ghana, William Boateng, explaining what the challenge is and what is being done to address the issue of the faulty meter.
Right, so that's the Public Relations Manager for the ECG, William Boateng, explained to us what has accounted for the 40 meters we are seeing in our system. Are you convinced with the responses he gave us on this matter? Drop your comments on our Facebook page, Joy News, also on Twitter, Joy News on TV, with the hashtag